You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Hello and good day. Welcome to the Mushie Moment for Tuesday, February 7th, where my co-host has told me, you have to do this. It's your turn. So this is my lovely co-host, the Reverend Cindy Howell. We're here live on paceradio.net, cbgtv.com, through Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Boxcast locations like Roku, and Fire Sticks. So welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, Cindy. How are you today?
I'm very well. I'm having a good laugh at myself, Steve. I went and stuffed myself a nice little cone for the show, and I forgot to take the stuffer out of the cone before I stuffed it.
Oh, good thing you didn't light it yet. Oh.
That's why I was laughing when we came on air, because I had just discovered that this thing was in here. So, yeah, we're good. How you doing today?
I am doing awesome.
Excellent. Excellent. I see that you have a boss that made you do the opening.
Yeah, that was scary. Hopefully nobody notices if I mess up or don't say anything anyway.
There you go.
So we have an exciting guest today. Do you know who our guest is?
We do, and we have some exciting news that we want to share too before we bring our guest on. I'm so excited. Our network as a whole has been nominated on the Canna Expo on the Canna Expo. Yeah, is that what it is? canexpo.ca. I have to make sure I pronounce it right because there isn't a second A there. So we've been nominated for an award going up for podcasts. It's really, really exciting.
Is it? This. Now, yes. Everybody out there, did you see? You can vote. You can vote daily. Go vote. See, it said vote now. Vote now.
Yes, we've got a banner that even tells you that we have been nominated for the best cannabis-related podcast, our network as a whole, at the Can Expo in Toronto. You can click for voting, or you can just go to canexpo.ca and then use the drop-down menu to find the voting. It's really cool. You can vote daily. Don't be scared to go back every day and vote. There are a lot of wonderful people that you can vote for in a number of different categories. We are under the podcast category. Pace Radio Network. It's pretty exciting.
We'll be waiting for you to vote for us.
Thank you for your time. But yes, and now we have a wonderful guest who spends his time, once a year especially, helping people learn.
Yes, he is one of the facilitators, organizers, promoters, and great guys. And awesome speakers, because I got to see him at the Spirit Plant Medicine Conference here in Vancouver. Last year was held at UBC, and I believe this year it's going to be at UBC again. And I have to say, having taken part in it, I'm doing it again. So I'm going to bring him in. Please welcome Marc Caron.
Hi, Marc.
Hey, Steve. Hey, Cindy. How are you?
Awesome. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me on the program.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure.
Thanks for coming.
Hey, my pleasure.
So my introduction to you was through the Spirit Plant Medicine Conference. And, the conference is an amazing thing. We'll get to the conference. Let's get to Marc. What made you get into this field, do what you do? What brought you into this world?
Well, that's a great question, Steve, and thanks for asking, because like anything, like any plant medicine work, it was a journey, right? And as a teenager, I actually induced psychedelics, LSD and mushrooms and things growing up in Northern Ontario. I played around with a little bit as teenagers do. And then, as I kind of grew up, I wasn't something I was ever interested in or that I ever went back to. Now, fast forward, I was always a cannabis guy. To me, cannabis was just always one of those things that was part of my daily life for, since I've been really a teenager until now. And, I don't want to tell you my age because I'd be giving away too much. But
42 is okay.
Let's say 4 decades, cannabis has been part of my life. And, I thought myself as always a pretty worldly guy. I was always, I'm done a lot of work in personal growth, personal development, and things of that nature, just in my own curiosity to help people. And it was after a bunch of changes in life. I had a corporate career. I was with a world organization for 22 years, which ended quite interestingly as 18 months on a picket line. And that ended at the same time one of my long-term relationships ended. And, ironically enough, I met a girl. That's how it all started. And she was a great gal. And, she was a musician and an artist and things. And shortly after we started seeing each other, I was kind of like, well, I'm into cannabis. Are you okay with that? I like to smoke my pot and stuff. And she goes, oh yeah, it's just not my thing. No problem. And ironically enough, I said, well, what's your thing? And she said mushrooms. And I laughed. And this was probably, I'm going to say this was like 2013, the fall of 2013. And I kind of laughed and I said, really? They're still around? They're prehistoric. Like, really? She goes, oh yeah. So she basically reintroduced me back into the mushroom. It was more of a recreational thing that we were using it. And she also, ironically enough, introduced me to MDMA, which I'd never used before. I'd never heard of DMT or ayahuasca or any of these things. And all of a sudden, all of these things started coming up in my circle of friends and as my life was changing. And then I had another friend who was doing a lot of work actually down in the Amazon. She traveled the world and she came back and we were talking and reminiscing and I was sharing about the mushroom. And then she started sharing with me about all these plant medicines and the healing ability of these plant medicines. And I kind of went and took the YouTube University of Terence McKenna. It's like I got and started learning everything I could online. Because as a coach and a guy who likes to help people transform and change their lives, what I really liked about the use of these plants is the way that it can wake people up, that mystical experience or that people refer to, or the personal insight that they would get. And I saw it as a tool for transformation to help people get unstuck in their everyday lives. Because, we know that modern therapy and talk therapy doesn't always work for a lot of people. And for some it does, for sure. And then one thing led to another. I was looking for different career opportunities. And there's a gentleman I knew, Andrew Resmer, who had Conscious Living Network, was looking for an events guy. So one thing, I took that on. And Spirit Plant Medicine, I attended as a volunteer just because I kind of taken over the events in 2017 out at UBC. And it was only a couple hundred people. And I took over the conference after that. And within that, as a number of different events, it just kind of snowballed in terms of education, the people I was meeting and connecting, and the power of these medicines. So that's really kind of what took me down the road into where I was going. And I remember one time I was sitting in ceremony with Shine, and people know Shine. He's a world-class didge artist, and he's just incredible. And that's when I first met him. And he looks at me afterwards and goes, "She showed me, mate, you're a medicine man." And I was like, Okay, well, that's a huge responsibility. I get it. I see it too. Though, what form does that take for me? And part of that is, as I see, creating the conference and the event in a way that becomes an experience for people. And in itself, the event becomes medicine, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it kind of came. And now, here we are. I've been doing it since first one I planned and organized was 2018, getting into this for 5 years now. And, it's just growing. When I started, the psychedelic renaissance was just really kind of kicking into high gear. And there wasn't a lot of what we were doing at the time. And then over the past, 3 years, we've just seen this explosion in the power for healing and transformation that these psychedelic plant medicines provide for people. So that's really kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah. So like I've got that brings a question to my mind. You said it's been the last like 3-ish years that it's really blown up.
That I've seen, so underground for a while. And when I started in 2017, and over the course of the lifespan of the conference, it's been about, this would be 12 years. It was like 30 people, 50 people, 100 people to a couple of hundred. And now, we're selling out our event space at UBC, since I took over in 2018, just because of this ever-growing interest, as well as what you see everywhere else around the world. Like, you've got your show going now. Steve's been on Psychedelic Frontiers with CTV. There's so much happening.
Yeah, and that was going to be my question. Do you think that this, like, I mean, there's two things that I see that might have contributed to that. Like there was 2 very large documentaries that came out that featured psychedelics. I mean, Dosed, and then the Psychedelic Frontier 11 months later. But then also COVID, people were home, and I found that I had more people reaching out to me and asking me about mushrooms when COVID hit, because they were stuck home, and really out of a recreational curiosity, which has led them to the medical curiosity of them. I mean, like,
And I found the boom was actually because I was already through that, working on the microdosing aspect, that my avenue of people started to reach out for the healing avenue. When COVID hit, a lot of people said, I'm going to take this opportunity to focus on me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, even with the COVID situation, people were at home more. They had more time to consume more information, more content as well, right? Yeah. So I think there's a number of factors in play as it's growing. And probably one of the biggest things I would say is the what I would call social proof.
Yes.
There's a lot of people working with these medicines now, telling their stories of their experiences and of their transformation, that people are becoming curious. We've got a mental health crisis, not just in Canada, but really throughout the world.
Well, I like to think Gabor Mate is dead on, in that it's actually a trauma crisis around the world that's created a lot of mental health issues.
Oh, it's a number of things. It's education, it's culture, it's community and lack thereof. It's rules and regulations that governments and societies and religions are putting on people in terms of what's happening. In our Western culture, we've got no rites of passage. We've got no guidance. We've got the most powerful tool at our fingertips right here with our phones and our computers, with all the information and disinformation and misinformation that the world can possibly offer. And we've got the least amount of guidance ever in terms of filtering through it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of it, and how do we then, because people are looking for answers. People don't want to be depressed anymore. They don't want to be dealing with PTSD anymore. They don't want to be living this way. Yet,
yeah.
Like, I believe everything's a pattern. Let's look at the pattern in society and culture. let's look at how our, world views, our values and beliefs stack up. And this is where certain things aren't working, right? And certain things are. And when it comes down to plant medicine, nature has clues, man. It's the best pharmacy in the world, in my opinion, is nature.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not just involved with spirit plant medicine, but just plant medicine, whole plant medicine, and watching people heal. Watching them reverse their cancer, switching over to whole plant medicine. Some cannabis product, a little bit of mushroom product, and life changes and amazing miracles happen.
Well, it's when you talk about microdosing, I think it's such a powerful tool. Because there's some people who don't want a full-blown psychedelic experience, and there's people who shouldn't have them, right?
Yes.
That's just a fact. But the microdose still has so much potential for people in neurogenesis and the rewiring and
the repair. Yes, it does so much. Like that is where I'm from. That's what I was healing of myself. That's what that's why my microdose exists. Is because that's the tool I used and the combination I used that worked to repair the damaged neural pathways to get rid of the loops in the brain chatter.
Yeah. Well, I recently, over the course of past couple of years, like with COVID and everything, life changed. And now I'm living out in the valley with my brother. And my brother was in a car accident probably just over 20 years ago. No sense of smell, no taste, brain injury, physical challenges. Cannabis is one thing that always works for him for pain. Right. And when he was living with my mom, he wasn't as interested or as flexible to try something new in terms of microdosing or anything else. Right. And so eventually now I'm living with him. He's kind of got no choice. I'm feeding him all sorts of different mushroom products and tinctures and microdoses and things like that. And what was really interesting for me one day, and this was shortly after the conference. I was gifted some of the guys who had some mushrooms that were growing at the conference. They gifted them to me. And so I brought them home. I got this big tray of natural, fresh mushrooms still growing. And a little piece had broken off. And I had it sitting there. And I said, oh, here, go for it. And so he tasted it. And he says, no, that tastes earthy. And for me, it was super powerful because here's a guy who I've tried to trick with taste and smell for 20 years, right? Haven't gotten any smell, but there's now something changed with his taste, right?
Wow.
Just for him to say it tastes earthy.
It tastes
was huge.
It tastes.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah, that's really amazing.
And I've seen that now over the time that he's been working with, from microdosing, right? He's not interested in a psychedelic journey. It's not what he at all. But how over time, all of a sudden, here's a guy who could never taste, and he's actually saying it tastes earthy. And I go, look at that, you can taste. And he goes, oh well, no. And it's like, no. It's very specific because he would get angry.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Smell that, can you taste that? And he'd get angry because he said you can't. And now all of a sudden, he's describing things from a taste point of view that he never did for 20 plus years.
Wow.
Right? So now I gotta figure that out for smell.
Well, healing is healing. It just takes time.
Yeah.
Once, like the psilocybin end has its specific things it does, but if you're utilizing a bunch of the other mushrooms as well, they jack that immune system. The when you start looking down the research on how they work and how they modulate the immune system and boost things up, the body doesn't really go, oh, I'm going to heal this and not that. When it gets into the healing matrix and has the right tools, it puts it into healing.
Lion's mane, cordyceps, turkey tail, chaga. There's so much, and I'm blessed because I always get a great assortment every year at the conference. So I've got the source, and this is one of the things I want to acknowledge with you, Steve. And the work you're doing with At Ease is, because you're making these things accessible to people, And some people have a hard time, they hear about mushrooms. And even I just saw something on the news the other day, I think it was CTV, there was a article about mushrooms and then how, they're illegal, but everybody's looking the other way. And there's all these stores and dispensaries and everything else, right? So they're accessible. You can find them. And then there's people who still can't find them, which I find interesting. But I think it's important to know that, this medicine or these, fungi are available and they're out there.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And John and I kind of work from that moral point of view with, we're same with Cindy. We're all people that suffered PTSD, and we're walking our way out of the darkness, and we're just saying this is what we're using. If you want to try what we're using, come along. But we're finding light, and that dark place is shitty to be in. So
yeah, I mean that's why I do the podcast, is to it's to not just share my story, but to share others. That's how you put the flashlight at the end of the tunnel for somebody. So you can like, hey, I walked through this path, and all you got to do is follow my light. I'm over here.
Yeah. Well, and that's the important part of any kind of, if you're going to be, I don't even like to use the word healer or anything, but if you're going to be someone who is a mentor or a role model or to help people, is you can't take people where you haven't been.
Yeah. Right.
Like if you're going to the gym and you're getting a personal trainer, that person needs to at least be fit. Like it's hard to take instruction from someone who can't relate or know your struggles or what that is. And this is what I was talking about earlier about the social proof, right?
Yes.
It's these things work, and look at all these people and their experience, Well,
but in your experience,
because science needs to know, right? Science wants to and needs to know. Yet there's people who don't care about the science; they just know it works.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, I found it worked, and I had to find out why. So I went down the science. It's like, okay, there's a lot of people spouting it. Now I'll give it a try here. I've looked up the safety and efficacy factors, and okay, let's step into this. And then when you notice the changes, for me, it was like, oh, that's interesting. What's going on? And then it's just, okay. And the research is there. It's if you're tenacious enough, you'll find that research.
Hey, for those who need and want that intellectual understanding of what's happening, it's out there. It's out there.
Yes.
And I think that there is equal amounts, if not more, again, social proof. This is what worked for me.
Well, when you get involved, like especially your world, where you're stepping into a conference world like that, how many people have you worked with within that community that aren't hurt healers helping hurt healers heal?
Well, I'd probably say in some way, shape, or form, we all are. Right? And that's the reality of it, because no matter where we are in life, we always have work to do. Right? We always have it. And this is the thing too, where, it's something for people to be mindful of. And this is about, recognizing and honoring, these plants as medicine, as life, because that's the beginning of it. There's movements out there where ceremonies are becoming the new party and things of that nature. And it's a great experience. It's great music. It's a great journey. Yet, are we taking what we experience and learn and incorporating that and integrating that into our lives? Right? Just because you go on a journey and sit with ayahuasca 1, 2, or 3 times, it doesn't mean you're cured.
No,
it's
not
just
at all.
The part of the journey that we have to take the insights from that experience and incorporate that into our lives.
Oh,
right?
I'm well past a year from my Aya journeys, and I'm still integrating weekly still.
Yeah.
In some of those journeys, you get so much data that, I'm Could be a lifetime of integration.
And ideally, it is, because, there's always something we want to change, or, no matter how great it is, you hit a plateau.
Yeah.
And then what's next, right? What's next? And it's just an attitude of continuous and never-ending improvement and growth and development in whatever way that we can. The important thing is that people need to have the ability to end their suffering and to live a life of joy, of peace and bliss. And no amount of psychedelics is going to do that for you if you don't start changing your mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah.
Right? It's fundamental, because everything's a pattern. But if you go have your great experience and come out of it and you don't make any changes and you just do the same thing, go into the same routines, the same practices, the same beliefs, the same language, all of these things, you're going to have the same problems, right?
Yeah.
Or the same life or the same results.
Yes. Yes, it doesn't matter how many tools you provide. If the person doesn't decide to heal, they're not going to heal.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why, the commitment is always key in any kind of, work. If I'm coaching or working with someone, it's like, you've got to be committed before we even get going, because if you're not committed, you're done before you even start. Right? Are you willing to do whatever it takes? And some people aren't. Right? They need to find that way for them to push through. And I think psychedelics are really a catalyst for that, because some people get so stuck in here, the mystical experience will take them out of their head into their heart and into their spirit, so that they can have a more profound level of insight to themselves, to the world, to spirit. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Nicely descripted. You put that very nicely. That was awesome.
Thanks.
Hey, should I do our halftime ad just a couple minutes early?
It's about that time. Yeah.
This isn't a bad time to do it.
It's a pretty good time.
Okay, well,
Do
now
it.
I
Do
need
it,
to
Steve.
go.
Do
here.
Don't forget to say
And
what
then-
you're supposed to say before we go there.
Okay, hang on, because I'm. Don't tell everybody. Don't let them know that I'm about to do this.
Okay.
Okay.
It's a secret. He's not about to do this.
He's not doing anything.
Oh, look at the time. It's break time. That means it's time to hear from our sponsors and pay some bills. Sorry, you're watching the Mushie Moment live here on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Boxcast, CBG TV, and Pace Radio Network. We're here with Marc Caron, and we'll be right back after this word from and Cindy Howell, and we'll be right back after this word from our sponsor.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Pace Radio is the people advocating cannabis education radio network.
Are you watching television on Roku, Fire, maybe an Apple TV or even Chromecast? If you are, then download the Boxcast app and search for CBG TV.
CBG TV broadcasting to a worldwide audience. Find us at cbgtv.com. You're watching the Cannabis Broadcasting Group here at cbgtv.com.
Did you know that the Pace Radio Network isn't just a radio network? That's right, because most, but not all of our programming is now done via video and is then podcasted at paceradio.net. So if you want to watch our programming, you'll find us on the Pace Radio Network's Facebook page, plus the show's own page, and you'll find us live on the network's YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can find it all, video and audio, at paceradio.net.
Legacy 420 have an awesome array of cannabis-infused beverages, from pop to Nature's Nectar's teas, all in amazing flavors. What a selection! We even have a delicious mango-infused juice, and let me tell you, it's delicious.
Everything is infused in-house, so we buy our syrup from, the same place where everybody else buys their syrup for their pop, and the infusion is done in the lab. It's all canned here, labeled here, produced 100% on Tyndonega.
We have 2 lines of drinks. One is called our Nature's Nectar. That was our original line that we came out with. And then we also have a line under the Red E brand. We have them in 10 milligrams, 30 milligram, and 60 milligram cans.
What a great selection for a get-together with friends or after a long day. Remember, if you want to wet your whistle with on-site lab-tested products, come see your trusted partner. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Welcome back to the Mushy Moment. We're live here at paceradio.net, paceradio.net, and cbgtv.com, streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Boxcast, Roku, and Fire TV. And we're back with Marc Caron, our guest du jour and most awesome guy. Okay.
Most awesome guy.
Most awesome guy.
That would be my title. Hi, my name's Mark. I'm the most awesome guy.
So says Fungalicious Steve.
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw this little thing up where they can find you at these different things. And I wanted to ask you about your consciousliving.radio.org and your FM show that you've got going on. What is that all about?
Well, it's something started by Andrew Resmer a number of years ago, just in his passion for, sharing consciousness-related information, stories. We get authors, teachers, speakers, number of different people. So we look at all the different aspects of basically raising consciousness, through technology, through, food and whatever that might be. Meditation practices, conscious relationships, conscious sexuality, anything that has to do with, a better everyday life with higher consciousness. And consciousness at, its very root is just an awareness, right? As we get into spirituality and community and collective consciousness and things, it becomes a much more powerful conversation than just being aware. But we've got to start somewhere because we can't change what we don't acknowledge, right?
Yes, true. Well, you seem to be a pretty busy guy. What do you have going on? You have the Spirit Plant Medicine Facebook page as well?
Yeah, we've got the Spirit Plant Medicine. We've got a fairly large group on Facebook. We've started a YouTube channel over the past couple of years just as a different way of sharing our content. And we've got, from an educational perspective, and I think this is something I really want to share, is we have a membership site. And in there, we have probably over 180 videos of past presentations, interviews, talks, and things with speakers from the years past of our conference. And that's something that, I like to call it kind of like the Netflix of plant medicine, because it goes back quite a number of years. But there's some great information for people to tap into in terms of learning more about the power of these plants. Because, one of the things that I think is unique about our conference, and it's something that I've heard from Mark Hayden, Dennis McKenna, Paul Stamets, these guys who have attended and been around the world at different psychedelic conferences, is, we bring everybody together. It's not just a scientific, doctor, academic, in your brain conference about all the science, right? And it brings together, some great teachers and researchers and doctors and things, there's no question. But we also bring in, large indigenous representation, because it's something we hear about more and more because of the ancient history of these plants and medicines, as well as it's a huge voice. We're sponsored every year by Cosmic Sister, which is devoted to psychedelic feminism and giving women a voice. So we're looking for the BIPOC community and make sure we really represent all areas of life, of education, of knowledge, to acknowledge, again, the indigenous teachings. We do a lot of charitable work to share people's work for, like, the Wixarica people. There's a number of things we do with Flavio down in South America. And, we always work to make sure we give these people a voice, for sure. And it's, again, it brings everybody together. So, we have shamans, we have underground practitioners, we have doctors and therapists, we have, seekers, people who've journeyed a lot, people who are interested in wanting to know more. It really brings people together. And the nice thing too is a lot of our speakers stick around all weekend, and they're accessible because they attend the conference themselves to continue their learning growth. And
I was quite amazed, actually, that they hung around. I had some of them come around to the booth. They came and chatted with us. I was amazed how approachable everybody was, actually. And I think and you nailed it. The education purpose of what you've got going, everything from doctors and scientists, and specialists in the field, right through to the shamanistic and the seekers, the people that have been on the journeys that are going, hey, I found a pathway. I was totally amazed.
Yeah. And it's not all clinical, because for me, I'm not personally, I don't want to go do a large dose of something and sit in a clinical environment, right? That's just me. But then there's that clinical side of things, right? I love the ceremonial side, and that, there's, the music, the connection, the community. You're doing things in a small group, and I think that there's power to that, because, as we all know, community is huge, right? Healing through community is probably equally as powerful as using medicines, because it's support groups, right?
Well, you've got energy factors there as well, right? If you've got a group and everybody's focused in healing and focused, that's focused intent, that's focused energy, that's powerful stuff. That's how, the pyramids were made. That's how our big buildings are made. Somebody has focused intent and people work behind it, and away it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one of the things that makes our conference unique. We also have the one of the things I believe in is, we've all heard it said before, experience is the best teacher, right? You've heard that? Yeah. So it's one thing to get all the brainiac, know the science, know all that information. It's another thing to take that and have an experience that validates what you've learned, because that experience is what leads to transformation. So we have to have education, we have to have experience, we have to have transformation, something that moves from the experience to a change in our life. And that change is whatever you want it to be, or maybe what needs to happen, right? And sometimes, it's always interesting. What you come here for is not exactly what you're going to get, because you're going to get so much more. And often it's not what you think it was, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
When the plant medicine gets in you, it knows what it needs to do, whether you think you know what it needs to do or not.
Exactly. Don't try to think you're going to.
It knows what it needs to do, so it's going to go do it, and you're just along for the ride to heal, right? And
is cannabis related. Steve, I don't know if you were there, but you probably were for our cannabis ceremony, which we do on the Saturday night.
Yes,
right?
I was there for that.
Because we create an experience as well. You know, cannabis being legal in Canada, we can get away with things that you couldn't necessarily do. It's much more short-lived than a mushroom experience or anything of that nature. So we do that, and we bring it together with meditation, with ceremony, with music, and then we have an awesome dance party afterwards, right? So we include this experience for people.
Yeah.
And then we have a great after party that brings everybody together where we eat and we have a few beverages. You know, we had an elixir bar last year. So it brings community together. And that's the key, is building community. And we see it in, again, if we talk about addiction and that study done from a guy here in Vancouver in the early 70s, what they did with rats and cocaine and heroin in the water and things. You guys are aware of that, right?
Yeah.
You know, but in community, the rats weren't taking heroin and cocaine, right? Maybe a little, but not to the point where if they were isolated, if they were alone, they'd kill themselves in a short time.
Yes.
You know, so community.
Yes, and that's huge, especially in the addiction world. That, what does Gabor say? He says the opposite of addiction is connection.
Yeah.
And connection takes community.
Right. And we all need to realize, you know, I've been part of the personal development world. You know, Tony Robbins is one of my favorite teachers. I've been part of his leadership team for events. I've done, I can't tell you how many. I've been learning and training and being part of that team for, 15 plus years. And the thing that's always important is to understand, as different as we all are, we are very much the same. We all have the same common fears. Fear that, we're not enough, rich enough, tall enough, attractive enough, whatever. Fill in that blank. I'm not enough. And because we're not enough, we won't be loved. Because what we all want at the end of the day is to be loved and to be accepted for just who we are, period. No judge, no BS. And I mean BS being bullshit and belief systems, right? Imagine if we could just have radical acceptance of all people, whether you believe in one political side or the other, medical and COVID, all those things, doesn't matter what you believe. How do we all just have radical acceptance because you are alive, you are human, you are in this meat suit to have your spiritual experience, right? How do we acknowledge and recognize that in all people so that we all know that no matter what, we are enough and we will be loved, right? In some way, shape, or form, we need to come to that. And when we have that, an all-inclusive mentality that we're one versus having an exclusive mentality, right, which separates, divides, and conquers and all of those things, we're going to continue to be at war with ourselves for a long time, right? And I think medicines bring people together. That's what I love about the mushroom and these things, is that mystical experience.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's funny because when people have done it, they speak the same language.
Yeah. Imagine we all speak a language of love, of acceptance, right?
I think that's the language that psychedelic medicine gives us.
For sure. It's a big part of it because, you take a look at people in this community, they're all lovers and carers and want to help people. And, we want that growth for people. We want to be able to, just know it's okay. It's okay.
That's the big thing. Just knowing it's okay. That's the big calmer that can curb anxiety and panic attacks and all sorts of stuff. It's just getting the brain to recognize that it knows that we're okay.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And, you talk about panic attacks and anxiety. One of the top things going on these days for people, number one thing there is breathe.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
I'm reading Jamie Wheel's book right now, and there's a section in there because he talks about one of the big things is breath, right? And just the importance of, your oxygen, your CO2, and even he was talking nitric oxide and the way that we breathe and do different things and how we need to oxygenate ourselves. And what we don't realize as a society, and most specifically individuals, is the majority of us all breathe wrong.
Yes.
Right? We breathe short and shallow up here. We're not getting enough oxygen. And then when something happens and we worry, stress, panic, and things like that, our physiological response kicks in, start breathing short and shallow, but we don't even have enough oxygen in our blood, let alone the rest of our body. Right?
So it shorts our brain out. So then we go more into fear. My doc explained this to me. He said, do you know what the physiology of a panic attack was? And it's interesting because between what he explained and the little Wayne Dyer thing talking about it, for me, it all came together. And Wayne Dyer said, there's no such thing as a panic attack. It's you getting anxious and then repeating the anxiousness to different levels until you throw yourself into a panic. And my doc explained it as you see the grizzly, you don't see the grizzly bear, but your body acts like it sees the grizzly bear. So your body goes into fight or flight. Then you shallow breathe and go, what's going on? And he said, then you can't see what's going on. So you shallow breathe more because you're scared more. And you short the brain of more oxygen. And then it goes, oh my God, what's going on? And you shallow breathe to another level till you're holding your breath and you can even pass out, right? And he goes, you put yourself into a panic because you're not breathing.
Exactly. And this is the thing that I think is important for people to understand, is how important it is. It's the one thing in life you can live the least amount of time without.
Oh, that's funny.
Right? 3 to 5 minutes for the average person, right? Food might be, or water might be 3 to 5 days, or food or whatever, but you get a lot longer time without water and without food before you're going to not exist, right? Oxygen's the most important. And we need to get back to that. So it doesn't matter how many mushrooms you eat or how much psychedelics you do or anything like that. We have to change the pattern of our physiology. Because within creating change, you got 3 areas, right? It's our physiology, and it's always physiology first. It's how we use our body. It's our biochemistry, what we put into it. So when we take in a mushroom, a psilocybin or lion's mane or chaga, it's complete different biochemistry than eating romaine lettuce or spinach or anything like that. But they all have an effect on our biochemistry, because nature will give you more genetic expressions than any pharmaceutical ever will, because it's the full plant, right? We got to control how we use our body, because you want to change how you feel. Use your body in a way that, like excitement has its own, woo, I'm excited, yeah, right? Versus depression has its own pattern of physiology. You're depressed, you're hunched over, and then you have focus. What are we paying attention to? Are we paying attention to what's good or what's bad? And as a habit, as human beings, we tend to focus on what's bad, right? Or what we don't want, which attracts more of what we get, right?
Yes.
So we have to consciously change our focus and change that pattern in our habit to focus on what's good. What can I learn from this? What does this mean? Right? What good comes from this?
I love that you put it down to patterns, because that's something I learned in the last year. The PTSD causes us to form dysfunctional patterns.
Everything.
And when you start to see them, it's like, oh, look at everything is just patterns. And now it's like, how do I catch the pattern before it takes off on me?
It's by recognizing it and being consciously aware and doing the work and willing to be open to seeing it, right? And the best teachers, the best leaders, the best of anything when it comes down to working with people and working with things is recognizing patterns, pattern recognition, right? We have to recognize the pattern. Our physiology is a pattern. There's 3 things that change how we feel, and that's focus, what we want, what we don't want. And then there's language, meaning, and story. Change your story, change your life. But people tell the same fucking story for 20 years. And every time they tell it, they're living 20 years in the past, or driving down the road looking through the rear view mirror, trying to go forward. It doesn't work.
Right? Yeah, you tend to stumble.
And so we have to recognize the patterns and then change the patterns so that we find the pattern that gets us closer to where we want to be, what we want, who we are, really at our core, right? Because again, everything's a pattern, right from our DNA to our language to our behavior to traffic pattern. Everything's a pattern. You'll find patterns in everything. And those who can anticipate the road ahead by pattern recognition becomes pattern utilization, right? We have to be able to use the pattern and what we see, but if we're unconscious to it, we'll never see it.
Yeah, that's what finding healing did for me. Is it started to make me notice I'm creating the patterns whether I'm conscious of them or not. So once you become conscious of that, it's like, oh, those aren't healthy patterns, and I need to adjust and bring healthier patterns into my life. The struggle is, as a human, we go, fuck you, I'm okay with those patterns. I don't feel like changing them today. You know, we're our own worst enemy in that progression of modifying the patterns.
Right. But that again becomes now, what do we value? Most people have not chosen their life consciously, right?
No.
They've chosen what they value, what they believe, what makes sense to them based on family upbringing, cultural heritage and history, religion,
television programming,
governments, all of those things. And we've been told what to believe, what to value, what's important. And then we do a bunch of stuff just arbitrarily because something happened and made us feel bad. We created belief to it. It happened when we were 15, and yet at 50, we're saying shit, don't have to, right? And the psychedelics help us pop out of that so we can see that, right?
Yes.
That's one of the beauties of it, right? Because most people don't pop out of themselves so they can be the observer of themselves. And if we take a look at any, ancient texts of Buddhism or, for ancient teachings of India, Shiva and all of these guys and Krishna, it's you become the observer to yourself.
Yes.
Right? Who's running the show? Is it this unconscious ego, right? Who's protecting itself, or is it this higher self that is guiding that? Who's choosing your words? And when we react to something, we're not conscious. Responding to a situation based on consciously have chosen what we value, what we believe, what's important, how we choose to show up, what our purpose is. You will respond very differently to a situation than if you're just unconsciously reacting, because that's always about some sort of self-preservation.
Yeah.
Right. And this one Lama, when we talk about healing, there's one Buddhist teacher we had speaking a number of years ago, and the question was around psychedelics and things, but he talked about it. He says, it's not, the meditation or the psychedelic or anything of that nature that's doing the healing. The only thing that heals is consciousness. So when we can expand and open our consciousness, that's when healing can begin and the next level takes over, right? Because you can't change what you don't acknowledge. And that's part of consciousness. You have to acknowledge what needs to happen. And when you can let that love, that light, that energy, depending what you believe, if it's Reiki or laying of hands, whatever that is, and it's proven to work, it's fundamentally true. But you have to open yourself up to, but if you think it's just a bunch of nonsense, well, you'll never get a result.
Yeah, you are what your belief is. So if you're believing it's nonsense and not going to work, you're telling it not to work. You're telling it, no, this isn't for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, we're reaching that time, and man, I want to say thank you for coming on. We're gonna have to have you back because there's way too much
happy
to
to
talk
come
about.
back anytime. We can talk about all sorts of cool stuff. And one thing I want to say to your viewers and your listeners, if they do go to spiritplantmedicine.com and they use the discount code PACE, right, they'll get 25% off our membership. So it's we've got a monthly membership.
I wrote that down for myself. I'll go do that now.
It's we have a free membership level so that we rotate stuff through, and there's always stuff there for free. We also have our monthly membership for those who don't want to pay by the year, and you can start and quit that at any time. Then we have an annual membership, and it just helps us keep sustainable, is what it keeps us going throughout the year. But like I said, there's over 180 videos from the Dennis McKenna's to Paul Stamets, Jamie Wheel. We've had so many cool people on over the years, and it's all up there. But yeah, use the discount code PACE, you get 25% off.
Awesome. And do you want to give them the dates on when the Spirit Plant Medicine Conference is for this year?
November 3rd, 4th, and 5th. UBC here in Vancouver. And we should be launching our super early bird tickets March 1st.
Awesome.
Is what we're looking for.
Awesome. We'll have them before we see each other in Ontario. I was going to say, where the hell am I going?
Yeah, well, we're talking about going east as well.
Okay, so this is where I say, okay, do you have any other last minute things you want to say before I pretend I'm not reading this thing and then hit that closing thing?
To anybody watching, I just encourage people to be curious, and to be mindful of others, to be respectful, and to really seek to understand yourself and other people, because there's been too much separation in this world over the past number of years, historically speaking, but even more so. And to really just show up in a place of understanding and caring and knowing that we're all on this path together, and as different as we are, we're all the same, and that there are ways, there's tools, there's solutions to creating change, and it starts with the desire and the recognition that something has to change, and to know that if you're here, you're blessed, because we have this opportunity to live life on this planet, and depending on what you believe, there's something to always be learning. And I'm just grateful to be here on the program with you guys, and I'm just grateful for the work that we're doing to help change humanity so that we can live a even more joyful, fulfilled, happy, ecstatic life is really what it's about.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. Thanks for joining us here at the Mushie Moment for today, February 7th, 2023, coming to you live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn. I forgot that one on the previous one. paceradio.net, cbgtv.com, Boxcast on Roku and on Fire Stick. And remember, the discount is PACE when you go to spiritplantmedicine.com, and you'll get 25% off. Okay, now I hit go on that thing.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.